Totally. I just want to make sure. Yeah. I just want you to get in to see Jane and listen, you're not the only one. Most of which we have no control. Okay, welcome to Senate Education. This is Tuesday, March 14th. Great to see everybody.
I'll take it.
Yeah, so we're back. Thrilled to be back. Really excited to be here. Can't imagine being anyplace else. This is great. So we are going to jump in and look at pre-K summer study committee language. And I want to thank Senator Gulick. She worked on this over town meeting week. Committee may recall we decided to have Senator Gulick decided to take on the role of liaison between the two committees. And so that's been very helpful, and of course, our Ledge Council. So if the two of you wouldn't mind joining us at the table, however you want to do it would be great. While they are pulling up their chairs, I'll also mention the House has decided to sign on to our letter to our federal delegation, House Education, so we will get that out. And the last, our work really over the next few days, it's this pre-K language study. It's the miscellaneous education bill and school safety. School construction will be in Senator Probst tomorrow. And then we'll start looking at a list of things that we want to accomplish in the second half. So with that, thank you both. Great to see you. And if you would be so kind as to take us through this pre-K study language, which is in our files, draft 2.1. And I didn't know how best, I'm looking to our liaison, how best to do this. Maybe have a walkthrough of it and then you can raise some comments.
Yeah, sure.
How's that feel?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we can talk as a committee. And for those of you who are looking for Senator Hashim in his chair, he is on the screen, and we are glad he's with us as well, and hope he feels better.
Thank you.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Katie McFlynn, Office of Legislative Counsel.
Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel. This is going to be awkward while we decide who starts.
Yeah, no, all you.
So I'll walk through this and with the caveat that Katie can jump in at any point, and also the acknowledgement that Katie has done almost all of the work on the big bill that this may be attached to this point. So this language proposes to create a study committee called the Pre-Kindergarten Education Study Committee to make recommendations regarding Vermont's pre-K system for the purpose of ensuring that every 3- and 4-year-old has access to high quality, publicly funded pre-K education on a full school day, full school year basis.
Nice. Any questions or comments on that at this point? And I'm looking to you, Mr. Fisher, Ms. Kenny. Let's try to edit as we go. So any concerns? Great, seeing none. Yeah.
The next subsection is the membership of the committee, and I'm going to kind of go through this expediently, so stop me if you want to discuss any of the particular membership. So Secretary of Education or designee, and this language proposes automatically that the Secretary of Education will serve as chair. The Secretary of Human Services or designee, the Executive Director of the Vermont Principals Association or designee, Executive Director of the Superintendents Association or designee, Executive Director of the School Boards Association or designee, Executive Director of the National Education Association or designee. I think those are the organizations that you most usually see in this committee. Everything else will be relatively new. So the chair of the Vermont Council of Special Education Administrators or designee, moving on to page 2. Subdivision 8, the Executive Director of the Vermont Curriculum Leaders Association or designee, a representative of a pre-qualified private provider as defined in 16 VSA 829, that's the pre-K statute in Title 16, operating a licensed center-based child care and preschool program appointed by the Speaker of the House, So that would be a pre-K program outside of the public school system in kind of what you think of as a child care facility. And then subdivision 10 on line 6, a representative of a pre-qualified private provider as defined again in the pre-K statute, operating a regulated family child care home. And that representative would be appointed by the Committee on Committees. And that would cover the preschool programs that are in home care settings. Subdivision 11 on line 9, the Head Start Collaboration Office Director or Designee, the Executive Officer of Let's Grow Kids or Designee, and then the last member included in this draft is a family representative with a pre-kindergarten age child who would be appointed by the Building Bright Futures Council. So that would be the membership of the committee at this point.
Okay, seems like a good spot to pause. Does anybody have any questions or concerns at that? Yes, Senator Weeks.
Not to be derogatory, but just curious. All the representatives that are outlined in here so far represent industry, they represent school affiliations of one type or other. Yeah, don't take this the wrong way. Let's Grow Kids is a lobbyist. It's a lobbying organization. Why is a lobbying organization included in a list of professional organizations which represent their constituents within various education fields or industries and such? It's just, and I'm not quite sure if the nature of my question is understood.
Makes sense. It's a good question.
Perfectly reasonable
Okay, so
question. Yeah,
I don't know, can this initiate some conversation amongst us?
yeah, let's do it.
I mean, I would love to hear Sarah's point of view, but from my point of view, which is, doesn't necessarily hold any water, but I'll just say it, they are a lobbying organization, but they're also an organization that has spent a lot of time gathering data and information on pre-K, so they might have information that is relevant to the work.
And I do believe, and I could be wrong, but the NEA and others are all lobbying organizations. They're all registered lobbyists, principal associations. So just something else to sort of put out there so everybody knows that Ms. Kenny, it sounds like it would be helpful if you wouldn't mind weighing in.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. And I think you're right that there are a number of organizations on here that are advocacy organizations that are representing various members. I think the difficulty that I think you're running into here is that there isn't necessarily an organization like the Principals Association that it represents all childcare programs, because they are all independent, businesses or nonprofits. So there's not like a trade group per se. In the way that there are for some of the other entities named here. That being said, the Vermont Association for the Education of Young Children is an organization that's a membership organization of early childhood educators. So they're not really representing childcare programs per se. And I do, one recommendation that I was going to bring to you all is that Building Bright Futures is the entity that the state has designated as the official advisor to the legislature and the administration on all things early childhood. And they were actually named in Act 166 as a convener and like to support the constant evaluation of Act 166. So it definitely makes sense for them to be added to the study committee.
Okay, I get that bit.
Please.
So I get that bit, and I believe Building Bright Futures, because again, they're kind of legislatively driven, is a good solution, but you brought up NEA as an example, but
Senator Hashim and then Senator Williams. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to ask the question or bring up the point, while Let's Grow Kids is a lobbying organization, they also have extensive knowledge and an understanding about childcare in the state. And I think, to put any concerns or try to alleviate any concerns, might be worth asking and confirming, is there any financial stake or interest that Let's Grow Kids would have in being a part of this? I don't know the answer to that, but to get some clarity on it might be able to help alleviate any concerns.
It's a great question, and no, it would only cost us to be a member of this organization or a member of this study committee. So no, there's no way that Let's Grow Kids as an organization would benefit from any work done on this per se. I do think that, I would probably not be the right person here, or maybe I would be, but only representing the fact that we do have a very experienced programs team of folks who are working on the ground with childcare programs every day and sort of providing technical assistance and capacity building efforts at the local level. So we do, in that respect, we, more than some other organizations, do have a window into what's happening for childcare programs on the ground at any given moment. So I think that's why the idea was to add this in.
So it's not just this committee, it's,
Health and welfare.
well, all 159 boards and commissions in the state of Vermont are all appointed people. We don't have anybody that's elected. How about somebody from the school board? That isn't elected official, that might understand what's coming, that would want to know.
That's a really good point. You don't think though, Senator Williams, that an executive, someone from the VSBA would, because they usually speak for the school boards.
Could be, but I like grassroots. I like
Okay,
building something from the bottom up.
okay,
And
In their
it's just-
designate, they could appoint somebody.
yes.
They could say, they could, I mean, they may not, to your point, they could just say the executive director is gonna be on there. But
All of the, like the regional reps and the board members on the VSBA are current school board members. So maybe we could possibly make that more specific.
Throwing it out there.
Yeah,
you have where it's the executive director of Vermont School Board Association or designate. It's up to the committee. We could certainly say an active school board member. But it seems like we also need to have Sue or somebody that knows sort of the whole
yeah.
sort of landscape. But I will flag it as something that, that we can continue to look into. Senator Weeks, are you interested in making a motion to remove Let's Go Kids? I just want to.
How did I? So I don't know enough about Let's Grow Kids, but I see a powerful lobbying group, which outreaches, outshines political candidates I've seen in the state, and it just makes me uncomfortable. I know that the goals are very altruistic and they're for the community, but there's bigger forces behind that. I just don't know. Just don't feel comfortable with such a prominent lobbyist being in the middle of a design group, a study group. Let them analyze the product of the design, not shape the sausage as it's being made. Let the professionals.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is there's no bigger lobbying group than the NEA on this. That's for sure. I mean, it's just, and we've got to sort of treat everyone fairly. Absolutely. What's that?
The NEA doesn't belong there either.
We just have to be somewhat consistent
Yeah,
in
I
our
get that.
policies.
We have very good representation across the board. Just don't know if we need lobbyists in the middle of the process.
Can I suggest that we take this under advisement?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we can continue the
I think
conversation
Senator Weeks brings up some good points.
and we'll flag it as a possibility. And I would recommend, if you don't mind, Senator Weeks, reaching out to Ms. Kenny and just having a conversation about it as well. That'd be great.
Doesn't Let's Grow Kids go away pretty quick?
2025.
25.
Please. Powers and duties.
Powers and duties, we're on page 2, line 13, subsection C, powers and duties. The committee shall examine the delivery of pre-K education in Vermont and make recommendations for expanding equitable access for all 3- and 4-year-old children to a full school day, full school year program in a manner that achieves the best outcomes for children, either through the current mixed delivery system or through the public school system only. Committee shall also examine and make recommendations on the changes necessary to provide pre-kindergarten education to all 3 and 4-year-old children through the public school system only, including a timeline and transition plan for such changes.
Okay, we're gonna pause there for 1 second. What line?
So, well, actually that whole, a couple times in that section, I really have issue with the either or.
Oh, right,
And
okay.
I've spoken about that with a few people.
Yep. Can you tell me what line that is?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so 18, it says, 17, 84 through the public school system only.
Yeah,
I think we should try to get rid of that dichotomy between
Yeah.
the two systems and see if we can't have more collaboration between the two systems. And I'm not exactly sure how we would word that, but I would
that is
just
something you've raised with me. I think you've raised
Yeah,
with
I
Senator
would get
Lyons
rid
and
of-
others.
either or language.
Just put a period after children. Then you're not addressing current system or public school only system.
Okay.
Sure.
So period after children online.
17.
Thank you.
Of course, I mean, the best outcomes for children is gonna be really subjective, but we might need to define that at some point.
Yeah. But does that get at what you're hoping to get at though? Just putting the period there?
It helps.
Okay.
It's a good first step, yeah. definitely.
Okay. And then are you saying eliminate the rest of line 17 and part of 18?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. The best achieves outcome.
Well, we could be more specific, say through a collaboration between the public and mixed delivery system.
I mean, that's what I thought was a little bit more what you were getting at when we talked.
So I think that is the mixed delivery system, is private and
I
public.
see.
Work. That's our current system is a mixed delivery system, and correct me if I'm getting this wrong. But it's a collaboration between the public school system and private providers in a childcare setting or a home setting. And so that, I believe, is the term that's been used to describe
You're
that
right, it
collaboration.
Yeah, and I keep thinking of it, when I see mixed delivery, for some reason, I was just thinking private providers. I don't know why, but yes, clearly.
I guess we may want to tweak that system to the point where it's something different. That's why I guess I'm looking at some different language. So,
So let's just play with this now for a minute. So what do you think? What did you say earlier? Sort of, you said combination,
the collaboration.
collaboration.
What about instead of the word current, we would say through a mixed delivery system?
Or what about, how about the best outcomes for children in a collaborative setting between private providers or what are they called? Pre-qualified private providers and public schools.
Totally makes sense. I'm looking at others around. Okay.
For the record, Ted Fisher, Vermont Agency of Education. Sorry, Senator, would you mind just repeating yourself one more time? I'm not sure I got it fully.
If Ledge Council caught that, maybe we'll have Ledge Council get it back to you.
So I believe what you'd like it to read is, starting on line 16, in a manner that achieves the best outcomes for children through we'll get to whether to keep the term either, but a collaborative system between private providers and the public school system. Is that
Yes.
okay? I think that is literally the definition of mixed delivery system.
Great, that's okay.
But
That's okay.
expanding
I think, yep,
it is perfectly fine.
yep, that's great. Senator Hashim.
I mean, my question was kind of answered
Okay.
through the conversation that's happened, but thank you.
Do you want to keep a requirement that there be an exploration of, because it gets into it in the next line, the public school system only option?
So the committee shall also examine and make recommendations. Are you thinking starting on line 18?
Right, so you're asking the committee to do kind of two things here. What's best for kids?
Yep.
1. 2, regardless of what's best for kids, what would it look like to stand up a public system
Yeah.
only? And so I'm wondering if you want to be specific in the directions of the committee on when they're looking at best outcomes. Do you want to require them to at least look at whether a public school system is included in there? Or are you asking them only to look at the collaborative system? In which case, I think they probably have to look at the public school system only option to get at the stand-up.
I think it's a really good question. It's a good policy question. Committee, what do people, how do people feel? And also feel free to weigh in. Anybody else on this?
This is why I'm seeming a little bit ambiguous here. It's that I personally would like to see or like to propose a system whereby the money goes to the public schools and the public schools provide pre-K, but when they are not able to, for whatever reason, they don't have the space, they don't have the staff, they don't have the physical structure, they will contract with pre-qualified private providers. So what do you call that? What would you name that? I'm not
But
really
isn't that
sure.
what
That
happens
what's happening
now?
currently?
That already
Well,
happened.
no, because I mean, a parent could choose now not to engage in the public school system. They could, even if there's capacity at their public school system, they could still choose to step outside the system. Actually, what you're describing is what is in the House version of the child care bill, with the pre-K proposal.
And that would be similar to the tuitioning system for K through 12.
And I'm also only talking about 4-year-olds and not 3-year-olds.
That's a policy decision for you all to make. This draft
That's what I'm
contemplates
gonna
looking
Yeah,
at
just 4-year-olds.
with the caveat that the committee's results may yield distinct recommendations for 3 and 4-year-old children.
Right, and that's why that language might need to change too, because the part of the idea behind being able to move 4-year-olds into the public system would be to be opening up 3-year-old positions in the private provider space. Because right now we know some of them have 2-year waiting lists, and this could be helpful and a really nice collaboration.
It could also take away some of the private schools. I mean, it could close down some of the smaller ones.
Oh, some of the providers,
So,
some of those little, yeah,
you know, they may decide to work for the school system.
that's true too. Yeah.
Good.
All sorts of different options.
But
Yeah.
I'd like to, I mean, I know we're just having a conversation here, but I think we all are aware that we're on this weird demographic cliff and that we are seeing declining enrollment because we're just not seeing the amounts of kids that we've had in previous years and generations. And so we are gonna have capacity in public institutions that have the space, the capacity, the staff, et cetera, et cetera.
But that would be nice to know when we go into
Yes.
this. That it's part,
And that's gonna be the work that they're doing, yeah.
is how many, how's it gonna affect the private provider?
Yes, and I mean, I think that it's part of the work that is outlined in here when we get to it.
So we are kind of at the 11th hour, so just tell me what you would like, just describe what you would like that language to look like, so we can get it going and kind of just have Ledge Council tighten it up.
Okay.
What would make
Please
you most
do it.
comfortable, and then we can always do a little committee vote.
Did you catch what I said before?
I did.
Go ahead.
So I guess this is a policy question
Yeah.
for the committee. Is it that you are asking the question because you want this group to come back and give you an assessment? Or is it that you have made a policy decision already that you want to see 4-year-olds in the public school system? And that the study committee is working from that baseline that you're already sort of anticipating that's your policy direction?
I would say no. I think I thought the purpose of the study was to compare the approaches, compare the concepts.
Yeah.
Don't give them the answer,
Right.
or have them seek
Right.
the answer and give us solutions.
Yeah, so it's a question that we are asking. We're not telling anybody that this is what should happen. We're asking the question, what is the best way? What is the best delivery? We're not saying you have to do, yes, so we've got that. You're okay with that? Does that feel good? Okay. Okay, please.
Can I go back then
Yeah.
to the comment about 3 and 4-year-olds? I thought it was 4-year-olds only that we were going to be looking at.
Yeah, this says 3 and 4.
So it's going back a few steps. I apologize, I just thought I missed something, but you mentioned it.
Yeah.
again. Line, page 1, line 5.
Yeah.
I just thought it was.
Yeah, that is confusing because in S56, it is 4-year-olds in the pre-K.
Yes, I mean, at this point, it's been removed, but it did start with just 4-year-olds. So the whole draft, this whole study looks at 3 and 4-year-olds. And here's sort of the rub, is that the current UPK program, Universal Pre-K program, is a program for 3 and 4-year-olds. So sort of right now, the way we're thinking of pre-K is both ages. It's fine if you want to have a study that's just looking at one of the ages, like separating the 4-year-olds out and treating them differently.
Whose program?
It's the Universal
Whose
Pre-K.
program is that?
It's the state's program. So it's the 10 hours of state-funded pre-K for families. So that, that treats 3 and 4-year-olds the same. They look at pre-K collectively. So I think you could do either, you could do both populations. You could just have this study be about 4-year-olds, but I think, you know, are you looking at pre-K holistically in the state, or are you just looking at the issue of 4-year-olds?
So we're not gonna do away with the 10-hour program, are we?
This doesn't affect that. This is just looking at
So
pre-K.
if you take 3-year-olds away from the 10-hour program.
I was surprised to see 3 and 4-year-olds in this because I was still kind of going by the premise of S56, which was 4-year-olds separate from 3-year-olds. So that's what I would vote to do, but that's just my.
Can either of you give us some insight into the genesis of adding the 3-year-olds? I know that we met with you over during the town break, and at first blush, it seemed like 3 to 4-year-olds. I think we were all seeming in agreement. Can you tell us a little bit more about where that came from? And
Yes.
and if it was my idea, please don't say that. But if it was Senator Gould's, we don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the conversation had to do with that holistic look
Yeah.
at pre-K in
Okay.
general. And it wasn't, you know, the conversation wasn't just about the S56 4-year-old proposal. It was about what do we do with the pre-K population generally? So that is why 3 and
And
4-year-olds.
pre-K is a 3-year-old also. So it
Yes.
does seem, I mean, to make sense to include the 3-year-olds, unless I'm missing something. What's the drawback?
I think it's sort of the same question I brought up before, like if you are making a policy decision that the baseline is that we want to do something different with 4-year-olds, then maybe your draft should reflect that we're just doing something with the 4-year-old population.
I don't
But
think
if-
we know, so that's what I think we want
So
to
we-
answer that and kind of get it. It's a study committee. We're not,
Okay.
you know, again, asking some questions. These are the things that I'm not ready to answer. I know, you know. So that's what I would personally leave it 3 to 4 and let them come back and give us some advice, some direction.
Yeah, good. No, I'm
Okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to provide an answer to it.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is helpful. Okay.
So we left off on the very bottom of page 2, the very last word on line 21. Actually, I don't know that you came to a decision on the language on lines 18 through 21 regarding what does it take to stand up a public school system only program? Do you want to, it's the same policy analysis of.
I mean, I want all the information personally. I mean, I'd love to know what that looks like.
Well, then, okay, so you could say in a public
Yeah.
school only, in a mixed delivery system only, or in a collaborative system between pre-qualified private providers and public schools.
And my only thing with what Senator Gould just said is I wonder if what we would get back is sort of, this is what it looks like if we combine them. But to me, it's sort of like, okay, what does it look like if we just do public? What does it look like if we just, like you just said, do the mixed delivery? What does it look like if we just do private? Ms. St. James.
I'm not sure what your question is there.
Ms. Kenny.
I was just gonna say, I don't think there's a just private option
Okay.
here, right? It's either current mixed delivery or some expansion thereof, or just public schools expansion.
Again, not to provide the answer to the people
Right.
who are asking questions. I
Exactly.
agree with Senator Campion that that should be an option. Why not? Don't, you know, don't tell somebody what you want them to do based on a question. We have to, this
So
group has to come back with answers.
what would you, when you speak for the language there, that would be?
Well, something to the effect of, you know, private, public, mixed delivery.
What would it take?
Three iterations of which cover the whole. Right.
Yeah, okay.
And we're gonna set
I'm
the
sorry,
policy,
that was, okay,
we're gonna set the policy based on,
based on this, hope, yeah. I mean, we might work, as is sometimes the
you look
case.
so well rested.
Okay, so we're still, I'm still viewing that decision that you just made, potentially.
Yep.
As the first prong of the committee's duties, right? What is the best system? Is it private only? Is it public only? Or is it a mixed delivery system? And Senator Gulick, I am including in the public only, in my mind, the concept of the fact that there will be a need for tuitioning because there are school systems that don't maintain their own schools.
How could we get that in the language?
Well, I think it's audit, well, we can certainly add language in the, then the next several pages are all of the questions that the committee has to look at. So you can build
We
in,
can add a question there.
but I would say that the current public school system in the state of Vermont does not provide an education for students in a public school setting in every school district.
And that's, I think, what
Tuition.
Senator Gulick really wants us to look at, right?
I also think that, look, language in a bill is
Yeah.
important. It sets a tone. There, I feel like there's already some, what's the word? You know, difficult. This hasn't always been an easy thing, this pre-K system. And anything we can do to kind of
Yeah.
bring people together as opposed to dividing them, I think is helpful. And that word only to me just keeps bringing home this like divide, which I think we should try to remedy as best we can. So, okay, maybe it's just a matter of taking the word only
Yeah,
out.
I thought I was just gonna say,
Still on the second.
Okay.
National.
Line
Yeah,
18, page 2. Through the public school system.
18, and then again,
Period. Yeah, no, words matter without a doubt. I mean, we just want to make sure that when it comes back, we kind of get this, what I think we're moving in, three different possibilities and what would be best. But then to Senator Gulick's question about pre-K in public schools and contracting. So right now, and I don't know what the answer to this is. If you're up in the Northeast Kingdom and you are a public school, but there's no public school, it's a tuition town, you can tuition K through 12 maybe, but you can't tuition, you cannot. So
No,
that's,
yes, you can.
you
So,
can. Okay.
Even if your school system has a
You
public.
can
school program,
contract.
You could, well, no, it's
No,
a
it's-
family's choice. It's a
Okay.
Private choice. They have to be pre-qualified
Okay,
through AOE and DCF, depending on the program. But it's a family's choice, regardless of whether their school district maintains and
Got it.
operates brick and mortar schools right now.
and I think what Senator Gulick is getting at, correct me if I'm wrong, let's have the school district do it. So if I were the superintendent, I would contract with a program, and that should be an option, rather than the parents saying, okay, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna go there. Does that make sense?
Does, so there is a provision in current law that allows, I don't think it's used very often, if at all, for there to be geographic limitations set on where you can choose those, where your Act 166 money goes geographically. But it sounds like so would this be for any public school system or just public school systems that do not maintain their own, that don't operate, that are in tuition districts?
I guess in my mind, to a certain extent, I am trying to empower the public schools a little bit by giving them the money and letting them contract where they feel is necessary.
So it would be any public school regardless of whether or not they
Yes.
operate?
Yeah.
So, sorry.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure. So for example, And again, it's a question, right? We're asking this question. So yeah, that's totally. I'm just thinking of what if the school has this great pre-K program, new principal, new superintendent comes in and says, okay, we're gonna say, we're gonna eliminate it here, and we're gonna contract. But again, we're just asking the question, is it right?
Right.
Okay,
So 4 systems, right?
4. Frankly, this is making more sense to me, and it's, okay.
That's important.
I think so.
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure if everybody else is okay.
This actually. no.
Yeah.
We are.
And then-
I'm gonna back up a step. This is,
Okay.
this is for us.
Contract.
Why are we only focusing on 3 and 4 year olds? Why don't we just take this from birth through, we already talked about this?
Well, that's you guys in health and
Jamie-
welfare.
I know, but so
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
studying. I'm not studying. I'm not talking about the implementation with raising federal government. This is about what should we do?
Right.
Step back.
Yeah.
Maybe overcomplicates, but
I don't know, we were given this task, so this is what I want to focus on right now.
this thing.
Right. You bring up a good point.
Yeah, you do. And frankly, when we send this to health and welfare, you all may add to this study and say, all right, let's expand it a little bit. We have plenty of time.
Yeah,
No,
I got
wait.
like 2 days.
Thank you.
Okay, first
Okay.
prong, we've got 4 options.
yep.
Second prong, are we keeping lines 18 through 21, requiring an examination of what would be necessary to stand up a public school program?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one, we're wondering what it would look like. What would that be?
Okay.
You could see us coming back and just asking that question next year, and now we'll have the information.
So the very end of line 21 on page 2, going on to page 3, in conducting its analysis, the committee shall address the following topics and questions. And then this is language that I believe is meant to get at the fact that there could be different recommendations for 3 and 4-year-olds. It says
Right.
may yield distinct recommendations for 3 and 4-year-old children. And then do you want to just keep going into the outcomes? Okay, so these are all of the questions and topics that the committee is tasked studying, and they are divided into kind of subtopics. So the first subtopic on line 4 on page 3, subdivision 1 is outcomes and quality. The first question is, what are the academic outcomes for children who have received universal pre-kindergarten education as compared to those who have not received universal pre-K education? In studying this issue, the committee shall account for social and economic disparities to the extent data is available. Second question on line 10, subdivision B, what are the academic outcomes for children who have received universal pre-K from pre-qualified private providers as compared to outcomes for children who received universal pre-kindergarten education from public school-based programs? And again, in studying this issue, the committee shall account for social and economic disparities to the extent data is available.
Senator Sheen.
Thanks. Just a quick question. I was trying to scan ahead and I don't think I saw it, but is there any mention of geographic disparities as well? I didn't see that, and I'm not sure if maybe that should also be included.
So social, economic, and geographic disparities.
Oh, that's a great spot to put it.
Just because I know there's deserts in Vermont of childcare and that sort of thing, so maybe something to consider.
So is that a district decision or is that the school?
To do what?
Tuition out?
So any district today or tomorrow, Ms. James will correct me if I'm, Ms. St. James will correct me if I'm wrong. If you're in a tuitioning town right now, you could change that tomorrow and do whatever you want to do. Or if you want to, you could, for all intents and purposes, shut down your school. I mean, it's a local school board decision, the tuitioning. Is that accurate?
Depends on what your articles of agreement look like
Okay.
and the grades you are formed to provide education for. So So if you are a school district that's only formed to provide education for K through 6, you couldn't just then put a decision, I mean, there would be a whole different situation if you're gonna expand your grades. But it depends on what your articles of incorporation say, but yes, the powers of school boards and the powers of voters are spelled out in law. And I don't know off the top of my head, but I believe that a decision like that is gonna straddle both groups.
Thanks.
Line 16, page 3, subdivision C, what are the benchmarks for high quality in pre-kindergarten education? Line 18, subdivision D, how should best practices be implemented and measured across various pre-kindergarten education settings in the current mixed delivery system? The second subcategory is on line 21, page 3, and that's capacity and demand. We're on page 4 now, subdivision A, in the current mixed delivery system, what impact does the program type, hours, or location have on demand for pre-kindergarten education programming? Line 4, subdivision B, is further data needed to understand demand for pre-kindergarten education programming, and if so, what is that data? Line 6, subdivision C, how many children by age does the current mixed delivery system have the capacity to serve? In studying this issue, the committee shall consider the number of children on wait lists and the number of vacancies in programs. Line 10, subdivision D, what are the workforce constraints in expanding pre-kindergarten education to a full school day, full school year program for 3 and 4-year-old children, including line 13, the gap between the total number of licensed teachers currently working and the number needed for expansion. Line 15, the gap between the total pre-kindergarten education workforce, including para-educators, and the number needed for expansion. And line 17, the educational and training costs associated with training and retaining the workforce necessary for expansion.
That's really
Just curious, page 4, line 10, what are the workforce constraints? Being that down below I, triple I, all are about constraints, I just strike workforce constraints. What are the workforce requirements for expanding pre? It's just, you know, again, you're telling me there's a problem. Some cases there is a problem, some cases there's not. Just, I would just strike the word constraint.
No, I would also like that, I would like specifically that question to be asked of if the 4-year-olds were to be placed into the public school system, does that mean that there will be an expansion available for 3-year-olds in the private provider market?
I would suggest something such as what would the impact
yeah, that's a great way to ask it.
Okay.
Are you okay with that? What's the impact if
on both I'm thinking of
Yeah,
capacity.
capacity and workforce? Yep,
Okay.
great.
Wouldn't you want to know the answer to both those questions?
Yeah, so we just,
Okay.
Which brings me to another question that we should all be thinking about as we're reading through this
I know what you're
language,
gonna ask.
which is this just way
It's
too
huge.
huge a
It's
study
huge.
to be done
In 10
in
years.
the in 25 years, no, in the time allotted? And I know I did speak with Ms. Kenny, and you know, she apprised me of the fact that a lot of this data has already been gathered and a lot of this work has already been done, but I still, we can keep going, but I think it's something we should be thinking about as we go through this language.
Yeah, I think it's a really great point. Are there areas that, you know, what I'm planning to do once we're finished, come up with a little more of a witness list, see what we might need to pull out, what we could add, and just try to get it, and also hear from those that are going to be doing it, specifically the Agency of Education. Is this realistic?
Right.
And what data is out there? Ms. Kenny and the agency would know better than I. Yeah.
They would use that data to come up with, potentially use it. Come up with the answers.
Right,
Sorry.
yeah, and hopefully take that and, yeah, put it right back into this, yeah, please.
So we are adding language with a specific question on if it's just a 4-year-old program. what is the impact on the capacity and workforce in the current mixed delivery system?
I'm gonna put that back on. Is that where you're comfortable there?
No, I felt the lights,
Oh.
or I saw the lights flicker.
I'm sorry, should we expand that to what are the impacts on, I guess you don't, well. Okay. Line 19.
Yep.
Subdivision E. Page 4, are families currently able to enroll in their desired program type? What capacity would need to be built to allow families to enroll in their desired program type? Page 5, the next topic or subcategory is special education.
Yep.
Subdivision 3, or subdivision A, line 2, how many 3 and 4-year-old children are currently in individual education plans receiving services in public and private settings? Line 4, subdivision B, are 3 and 4-year-old children on individual education plans receiving the full range of services they are entitled to? And 6, does the, line 6, subdivision C, does the availability or cost of special education services vary between private and public pre-qualified providers? Next category is public school expansion. Line 9, subdivision A, what infrastructure changes are necessary to expand pre-kindergarten education to a full school day, full school year program within the public school system only, including line 12, what indoor and outdoor facility updates would be required to ensure developmentally appropriate settings for 3 and 4-year-old children? And what is a realistic timeframe for such changes to be operational?
Should that be 3 and or 4-year-olds? You wanna,
What did we say earlier? 3 and 4,
You said to leave the question open,
right?
and you have the lead-in language that
Alright.
says you can distinguish between the age groups and making recommendations.
We're on line 15, page 5. How would required facility updates for pre-kindergarten education expansion relate to existing infrastructure needs? Line 17, how would the current pre-kindergarten education mixed delivery system transition to a full school day, full school year program within the public school system? Line 20, what capacity needs to be built for developmentally appropriate after school and out of school time care? Page 6, subdivision B, are changes needed to existing health and safety standards for public schools to accommodate 3 and 4-year-old children? The next subcategory is page 6, line 3, number 5, funding and costs. So A on line 4 is what are the costs associated with expanding the current mixed delivery system to a full school day, full school year mixed delivery system? Subdivision B, line 6, what are the costs associated with expanding the current mixed delivery system to a full school day, full school year program within the public school system? Currently that reads only. Do you want me to strike the word only?
You had that back on the other page too. Do you want it struck throughout? It was on page 5, line 11.
the word only?
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Line 9 on page 6. What is the most fiscally strategic way to sustain and expand universal pre-kindergarten education to a full school day, full school year program for 3 and 4-year-old children? That's your most open question.
Yeah, it's a pretty open question.
Yeah.
It is.
Line 12, subdivision D, what is the financial and business impact on regulated private childcare providers if the pre-kindergarten system transitions
So, yeah, that's good.
to public schools? And then we'll strike the word only there.
Please.
Didn't, my memory is failing me, but didn't we at one time talk about a full year, including,
That's a possibility.
right,
Full day, full year.
right, right. But that was in the other committee.
No, we also.
Oh, did we? Okay.
You're also, I think.
Okay.
It may have just come up. Yeah.
Because the private providers do that.
I know you guys have had that. for so
Yeah,
much.
I know,
I'm confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 of us are
Yeah.
living in 2
Okay,
worlds.
I'm sorry.
No, it's no need to apologize. Yeah.
Among many.
Same question.
I missed this. No.
At least you have that.
I know.
You know, to share, but.
I would get extension on this bill, so we're gonna one more week. Just for fun.
I get your point, yeah, make sure that's.
You could always get. Yeah, I just want to make sure people are comfortable with this, and if we can narrow it, just, you know, yeah. narrow it.
I see what you're saying.
So how,
I'm sorry.
maybe, so how do we
I
do
didn't
that?
mean to break the
Oh, no, it's fine. So, yeah, I think we should gotta go, we're gonna start pulling some of these questions, and really seeing what,
Yeah, all right. I agree on that one.
Well, this is specific to financial.
that's something to get out of the I kind of agree with you on that one.
Maybe some of that.
All right, how we doing
Okay.
down there? You guys-
Sorry.
No, no, you
Yeah.
don't need to apologize, I just wanna make sure.
We were thinking there were questions that were sort of duplicative, so we're gonna
Okay.
think about it.
That'd be
and
great.
might,
We can report back.
consolidate 2
Okay.
questions.
Yeah, and then,
Okay.
and what, do we wanna do any pairing?
Yeah, and then we can, as a group, maybe we can have, can work with folks in this committee tomorrow to get rid of it. Senator Rashid, please.
Thanks. I'm looking at the question that's on line 9, and I'm wondering if, I get the spirit of the question, but, my concern is, creating the task of what is the most fiscally strategic way. It's almost like creating a policy or allowing the study committee to create a policy that we should be creating, as opposed to having them provide us with different options that they think might work, and then having us choose what we think is the most strategic way to move forward. And also, given with this question, I tried searching. I didn't see if anyone from JFO was also on the study committee. I may have missed it, but it might be worthwhile to have somebody from the Joint Fiscal Office also work in this committee.
At least the policy. would
We
be-
generally don't
Yeah.
put staff.
Oh, really? Okay.
But they're there as a resource. That's accurate or
Not
no?
necessarily, no. Our office is only staff legislators and there are no legislators on this committee. And
Okay.
we usually only staff committees that are majority legislators, so.
It's a really good point, Senator Rashid, because this is a big lift. If we were to put one legislator on it, we could.
I'm already, my summer's taken with
You
construction.
would need a majority of the. of the
Okay, in
committee
order
be
to get the,
legislative, yeah.
okay,
I just think that if we may want to consider rewording the question, at least if we're not going to put any legislators on it, and have the study committee provide us with multiple strategies, if they can develop more than one strategy that could be applicable, and then ultimately we're the ones who decide what is the most fiscally strategic way to do it.
So would you say, what are the ways to sustain and expand universal pre-K? And get rid of the most fiscally strategic.
I think getting rid of the modifier or the word most, and
Okay,
I think ultimately the education committee will be the one to choose what we think is the most fiscally strategic.
So you would
Whereas-
just get rid of most, what is the fiscally strategic way, or
Or what are fiscally strategic options or fiscally strategic ways in which to sustain and expand?
We're gonna ask him to make a recommendation.
Good call, Senator Hashim, I think that's great. And then ultimately.
Esquire, nice job.
Yeah, it's future lawyer. This would ultimately, we would collaborate with appropriations or finance on this, right?
In terms of money.
Once the study's done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
like they would report back.
Yeah.
But on the money piece, because AOE is on it, do they, and they're leading it, so would this group have the resources of the Agency of Education behind them to pull studies, to get that kind of work done?
We haven't gotten to that part
Okay.
yet, but there is
There is
language
an
about
answer to that
assistance.
question, okay,
Yes.
great. Please continue.
And I think this is, one of the heavier lifts, but one of the shorter sentences. Page 6, line 15. What, if any, changes need to be made to pupil weights for pre-kindergarten students? Page 6, line 17. What, if any, changes need to be made to tuition rates for private pre-kindergarten programs?
That's a big lift. Yeah, okay.
So before we go into
Yeah, please.
oversight, should we
Yeah.
talk about pairing that, or do we want to do it tomorrow? Did you say?
No, I think it's a great, I mean, I think one of the things we'll, correct me if I'm wrong, any way we write, this is gonna be a big, heavy lift.
I think it's a policy decision. You can be really broad and hope that the committee gets at everything you want, or you can
Yeah.
be incredibly granular and give them no other option than to get at everything you want. Or, a happy medium is gonna be subjective.
Might consider putting language in about encouraging them to form subcommittees to do the work. And then the alternative is to expand the time frame, but then you run the risk of not having information back to you in time to make decisions.
We're gonna hear from the secretary tomorrow, I believe, and just get a sense. Hayden, can you check on that, Secretary French tomorrow on this board designate? Just on whether or not realistically what they're gonna be able to do around this. And maybe they could even help us pull sections out. What do they think? And then Ms. Kenny, also, if you could help us understand when you're before us, to Senator Gulick's question, if some of this research is done, like what is done and what is going to be new lifts and heavier lifts? So that's just something to keep in mind. Mr. Fisher.
Just for the record, Ted Fisher, Vermont Agency of Education and the agency's Director of Communications and Legislative Affairs. I just wanted to note that I think I'm scheduled to testify after the bill review and
Great.
can provide those thoughts in place of Secretary French, who I believe is unavailable tomorrow.
Fabulous. Best news I've heard all day. Great.
Oversight, page 6, line 19. This is, I believe, the last category in the questions you're tasking the committee to tease out. What additional agency of education personnel or resources would be needed to oversee an expansion of the current pre-kindergarten page 7 education system under either a mixed delivery model or a public school system? I'll get rid of the word only, I'll strike only, and include the two other options that we talked about. Page 7, line 3, subdivision B, what additional agency of human services personnel or resources would be needed to oversee an expansion of the current mixed delivery model?
Should we say there or private?
Yes, or that it has a private only. Page 7, we're out of, so that's everything the committee is tasked with studying. So page 7, line 6, subdivision D, assistance. Senator Campion, this gets at your question about assistance. The committee shall have the administrative, technical, fiscal, and legal assistance of the agencies of education and of human services. Page, line 9, subsection E, report. On or before November 15th, 2023, the committee shall submit a written report to the House Committees on Education and on Human Services and the Senate Committees on Education and on Health and Welfare with its findings and recommendations based on the analysis conducted pursuant to subsection C of this section. That's the list of questions we just went through. The report shall include draft legislative language to support the committee's recommendations.
It's not a lot of time.
So to support the committees, both their committee, this committee, okay, not.
No.
Because the sentence or the paragraph starts out, House committees on, but Senate committees on.
So they are reporting the work, the study committee's recommendations. Yes. Meeting, subsection F, the Secretary of Education or designee shall call the first meeting of the committee to occur on or before July 15th, 2023. The majority of the membership shall constitute a quorum, and then the committee shall cease to exist the day after the report is due on November 16, 2023.
I just had another thought, to give more time to this group. If you had this section take effect on passage, then you can move up the timeframe for when the group starts meeting.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
We might need to whittle a few things down still, but yeah. The committee shall cease to exist on November 16th. It just, so what if we've got a bunch of questions? What if they still come in?
The people don't go away.
No, I know
Yeah.
we're not sort of like moving them out of state, but there's nothing there that's, you know. we need to
My
kinda keep them
limited
going.
experience here is
Is-
that's
is
pretty
this how we do it?
standard language,
Perfect, great,
and
thank
that
you.
has not precluded any testimony in the past. Katie, have
Yeah.
you ever seen an issue with that?
Okay. Yes, I would.
So who's gonna, shouldn't we have like a cell of this committee to be there and make sure the thing unfolds the way that,
I had asked that question.
A cell? Is that what you
yeah,
Like
just
a-
not everybody, but somebody needs to look back at it.
Because I said, why don't we have
A
a house,
legislator?
a house person and a senate person on there, and this.
Frankly, I don't.
Oh,
If I had big opposition before, I apologize.
well-
Maybe I'm just in a better mood. I don't know. No, I mean, I really,
think Senator
I just don't
Lyons
have-
had an issue with it. I don't
well, this
remember
is
what-
our work, so,
Right.
you know, you respect whatever we decide.
I don't remember specifically. I think maybe there was a thought to rely on the technical expertise of the people in the field. It's already a rather large
It
group.
is a group, but we can, I'm certainly not,
How about just for our own flexibility, we move that date of the committee ceasing to exist, 4 weeks into the next session. So, at that point, we can either decide to continue or just.
yeah, that's actually a good idea. And that also gives them more flexibility if they can't finish the work, or, I don't know, I was on the phone this morning with the Library Association around some of the work they have to do. It gives us, yeah, thanks, great.
February 1?
Because we can't
February
affect
one's
it.
perfect,
We
yeah,
can't affect it before that date.
yeah, great point.
Last section is compensation and reimbursement, and this is language that you, depending on what the final makeup of the committee looks like, may either need to stay or go or be changed. Members of the committee who are not employees of the state of Vermont and who are not otherwise compensated or reimbursed for their attendance shall be entitled to per diem compensation and reimbursement expenses pursuant to 32 VSA 1010 for not more than 10 meetings per year. These payments shall be made for monies appropriated to the Agency of Education. And then the last subsection is an appropriation to cover those expenses. Almost everyone on this committee
Is,
is either an employee of the state of Vermont or would likely be compensated in their duties. However, you do have a family member, like a private citizen, and you would have to take testimony whether the private providers and the home care provider would, would there be compensation in their normal duties for attending those meetings. And then if you add legislators, that language would need to be adjusted accordingly.
Can I get back to
Yeah.
Senator Reese's point about February 1st? I hear what you're saying, but is there, and I'm new at this, so don't judge me too harshly, but is there something to be said for getting the study to legislators in November so that you have time? to
No, I'm
look
not
at it?
saying the study due date. I'm saying that what's the sunset on the committee?
Well, but knowing human nature, I mean, when do you think it would get done if you put the date of February 1st?
Oh, I'm sorry, we're still keeping the deadline of November. Yep, it's still due then. We just want to keep them alive only so that if we've got,
We need that.
if we need
Oh,
them,
okay,
something,
okay, so the report deadline is still.
definitely,
November 15th.
definitely,
Gotcha,
yeah,
okay,
definitely.
thanks.
And then I just want to flag for this committee's attention that we've drafted it as any appropriations for per diem is coming out of the general.
Okay.
I think there's also a question there, often the agency can assume the appropriation for work groups in their budget, so the question for the agency is whether they need an appropriation or not.
Okay, we have the agency coming in next. Is it possible for the two of you to stick around or watch this over Zoom?
I can.
Okay.
Yes, I'm emailing with another committee to see.
We're
if
gonna
they need me.
break until 2:45, 7
Before,
minutes,
before Katie leaves,
please.
what do you need from us going?
I think what we're gonna do next is hear from, well, first of all, if there's anywhere you can combine some of the language or get rid of duplicative language, anywhere that we can start to move in the direction that Senator Gulick, and I think she's right, it's big. Is there anywhere that we can kind of whittle it down? If not, we're gonna also take that charge as well, see if there's something we can do. We'll hear from the agency and Ms. Kenny to hear their thoughts. And then we'll get a sense from them also of what they think of the workload, particularly the agency. So nothing else other than that right now, besides the edits we made, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great.
You want a new draft for tomorrow afternoon with the edits we've talked about today?
Yes, that is what we would need, and I believe we'll have probably additional edits, I suspect, after we hear from Mr. Fisher and Ms. Kenny. Thank you both so much.